How's my hair? Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're not going to be talking about typewriters or office supply junky stuff or film photography or anything like that. Today we're just going to play around with analog video equipment. Stay tuned. So I first learned analog television technology in the United States Navy. In fact, it was in the spring of 1978 in Great Lakes, Illinois. I was assigned to go to the IC School, where I earned my 4746 Naval Enlisted Classification skill, closed circuit video. Went back to the USS Constellation, the Connie, and worked in the OE Division TV repair shop up until the end of my enlistment. And then I went back in the civilian world, and I was a professional servicer for about another 12 years or so after that. So that's kind of my background in analog television technology, and I've kind of had my hands dabbling in it ever since. You know, in the late 1990s, when I started going to Basement Films here in Albuquerque, who are a micro cinema, and they have a library of thousands of 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter motion picture, like educational films and things like that, and they do some very fun film projection shows with live sound effects. But they've done a lot of video artist shows over the years, and I used to go to those quite a bit in the late 90s, and I got interested in doing video art with analog video recorders and cameras, so played around with some of that. But I thought what we would do today is just look a little bit at the essentials of analog video, consumer grade analog video, and then look and see how I've hooked up these various pieces of gear to get this interesting little black and white TV effect. Well, a test pattern, something like this, used to accompany the beginning of the broadcast day every morning on the local television channels. And it was a very cool thing to see the test pattern come on, because you knew soon you would have your TV program starting up. So these are several waveform monitor displays that we would see in television servicing or in a TV studio. Basically, you have two horizontal lines of video separated by horizontal sync pulses. And that is what a horizontal line of video looks like on an oscilloscope or a waveform monitor. Analog television displays were made up of a raster that's created by a series of horizontal scan lines. Here you can see a little bit of these scan lines on this television display. And there are 525 lines in American television standard, broken up into two fields. That's called interlace scanning. They do one field and then they do the other field. But it's made of, each picture is 525 lines, and they occur 30 times a second. And if you want to know where the term YouTube comes from, the word tube in YouTube comes from this. This is a cathode ray tube. This is a hollow glass jug, a glass tube. There's a vacuum inside of it. There is an electron gun assembly in the rear neck of it. And the inside front surface of the glass is coated in phosphors. When the electron beam from the gun hits the phosphors, they emit light. There is a magnetic coils wrapped around the neck of the picture tube that deflect this beam back and forth horizontally and vertically, and it scans the phosphor screen and makes a picture through persistence of vision. That's why it's called a tube, because it is a vacuum tube, and that's where the tube comes from in the name YouTube. So there is a high voltage DC that accelerates the electron beam from the gun in the back of the tube to the front surface here. And in these little 12-inch black and white sets, it's probably 8 or 10,000 volts DC, but in the larger size color picture tubes, it could be upwards of 20 or 25,000 volts DC. And when the electron beam strikes the front surface of the phosphors and emits light, it also emits electromagnetic energy in the X-ray spectrum. And with the higher voltage, higher beam current of the larger color tubes, the concern was exposing the customer to X-rays. So the glass in these bigger CRTs is lead glass, which absorbs X-rays. And there were also electronic circuits in the circuit that would limit how much high voltage it would put out to limit the X-ray exposure. So back in the day when I was young, a lot of kids loved to sit on the floor right in front of the television screen to get that big screen effect, but it probably wasn't very good for us. So the television screen to your eyes should be looking pretty neutrally gray, but actually these little black and white television sets put out more like a bluish gray tone. What I've done here is I've white balanced my digital camera onto the phosphor screen itself so that it looks neutrally gray, and because of that the surrounding part of the image looks kind of orangish or amber colored as a result. This is what the picture actually looks like to the digital video camera you're looking through. So they kind of put out a bluish gray tone, these black and white sets did. So we're going to use this white balance for the rest of the video so that the black and white phosphor screen looks neutrally gray. So the tuner on these black and white analog televisions have two dials, and you'll see this upper dial is the main VHF, very high frequency range, and it goes from channel 2 to channel 13. There is a dead spot right here where the little dot is, and then there is a U. And the U indicates you can use the second dial, which is UHF. And it goes from channel 14 to channel 83. This was the older frequency range. I think back in sometime in the late 70s or whenever, they only went up from channel 14 to channel 69, and those other higher frequency UHF channels were reallocated by the FCC to a different part of the spectrum. So this is called a Clunker Tuner. You turn the tuner dial, and the little click, click, click positions, it sets the tuner to different tuning slugs for the different frequencies of the channels. And also around each tuning dial is a fine tuning knob. And if I turn the fine-tuning knob for this, you'll see I might be able to throw the picture out of range. And you sort of turn it until you're right in the midpoint of the channel and you have the sharpest image, right? Like that. The same thing goes with the UHF. It has its own fine-tuning dial as well. And some of the very early television sets, the early black and white sets from the 1950s, actually had a spherical or round tube, and the front bezel mask of the television masked it off into this kind of rounded corner rectangular look. But these more modern CRTs use a rectangular tube with rounded corners. So this is a composite video waveform signal showing one horizontal line of video and the horizontal sync pulses on either side of the horizontal line. So this kind of a signal is called composite video. In other words, it's made of lines of video with horizontal and vertical sync pulses between the lines and frames of video. And in the camcorders, we can output composite video along with audio. Well, we'll start with our camcorder. This is a Sony camcorder, and this is an analog 8mm video or high 8 video camcorder. I have a wide-angle adapter lens threaded onto the front of it, but it has the classic camcorder screen that tilts and flips around and closes up. Right? These have been around since the 1980s when Sony came out with the 8mm video format. So you have some cables coming out of the side of the camcorder. The yellow cable is composite video, right? So lines of video with sync pulses. And then I have left and right audio coming out as well. And the video and audio come out on these standard, what's called RCA jacks. This camcorder also has a S-video connector. The S-video connector has 4 pins. 2 of them are composite video black and white, and 2 of them are the color information only. And whereas the composite signal has the color information and the black and white all combined into a composite color signal. So, coming out of the camcorder, I have composite video and audio. The problem is, my television set doesn't receive composite video. It receives broadcast channels on these little 2-prong VHF and UHF connectors. The television has its own single dipole antenna that can plug in there. But I'm using this 300 to 75 ohm adapter, which is called a Ballon, and I'm using a RF59 cable. And what I'm using to make the RF channel picture is my VCR. So this is my newer VCR. This is a Jvc Super VHS Hi-Fi Editing Vcr, and I've had this since 2002, I think, and I've done quite a few analog video, experimental video projects on it. So it has audio and composite video inputs not only on the front but also on the back, and that's what I'm using. And I have the VCR tuned to those video inputs. So I'm using the line 1 channel input on the VCR, which is the back jacks, to receive the camcorder composite video and audio. So those connectors are right there. The yellow is composite video, the white and red are audio, and those are going into the VCR. And then the VCR has an RF modulator circuit, and you can put a television antenna into this input to record your channels on the VCR, and it has an RF output, and it will output on either channel 3 or 4 as selectable by that switch right there. So we have a local channel 4 in Albuquerque, so I set it to channel 3 so I don't get any interference. And that output signal comes out of the RF connector here on this coax cable as channel 3 video and goes into the television's VHF input. Coax signal gets converted to 300 ohm with the Ballon, goes into the 300 ohm inputs on the back of the old TV set. And then I'm using one of my Panasonic digital cameras. This is the GH3. I have the 20mm f1.7 lens on it, and I have it aimed at the television set here in my little studio table. So I have the television framed up here, white balance, of course, set, so the television's picture is neutrally gray, but you can see it's actually kind of bluish colored. And you have to mess around with your frame rate on your video in order to not get these dark bands in the video. So on this particular GH3, I'm using about a 20th of a second shutter speed, and I'm adjusting the exposure at f7.1. So that's how I'm able to get the video without any bands in it. Also, you might notice right now there are some noise bars running through, little flecks of noise running through the picture, and that's because my RF cable has a loose connection, and if I move it a little bit just right, I can clean up that signal so that it looks nice and clean. So I'm sitting next to the camcorder, framing up myself, and then I'm shooting the television screen with a digital camera, and that's how this whole little process is being done. So one of the things I really like about the VCR, this Jvc Editing Vcr, is it has the jog shuttle wheel on the remote as well as on the front of the machine. And what that's used for is you can, in playback, you can jog the video frame by frame to find the exact edit point that you want to use. And then you can also rewind and fast forward, cue and review in this mode. So a lot of different controls enabling you to do analog tape-to-tape editing with a VCR. These are very cool machines, and this I think JVC is one of the best VCRs. They actually own the patent on VHS. So I've always liked those machines. And of course, I serviced all the different brands of VCRs back in the day. I was actually factory trained on Beta from Sony. but I've also been trained on VHS. So anyway, there you go, a little jog shuttle wheel for frame-by-frame noise-free editing. Now, of course, this right here is a VHS tape. It's a TDK EHG, and so this is a T120 tape, so it's a 2-hour videotape. And you can see the spools of videotape here in the reels through the windows. So on the back side, you have your 2 spool hubs that are driven by the machine's transport. This little hole right here has a lock release. So there's a little pin on the bottom of the transport when you load the tape. The pin pokes up into that hole, and it releases the spring-loaded brake locks that keeps the tape from turning. Like right now, you can't turn the spool hubs because they're locked. But when it goes down in the machine, there's a pin that releases the brakes right here. This opening right here is for the tape end detector. There is an optical sensor. The newer VCRs since the mid-80s used infrared LEDs. The early ones used an incandescent light bulb. But it's looking for the clear leader on either the end of the tape, and that'll stop the machine in fast forward or rewind mode. There's a hole here, rectangular hole, and there's a hole here on the other side right there. That's what it's looking through to see the end of the tape. And yeah, this is the flap that unlocks the lid, and there is a little release catch right here, which is pushed by the transport. It releases it, and then it automatically opens. And there you can see the 1/2-inch wide magnetic tape of the VHS cartridge. So just like in compact audio cassettes, there is a record safety tab on VHS and 8mm. This tab right here is this opening right here is where it's at, and it's broken out right now so that it won't record. You'd have to put a piece of tape over it to make it record. So when it's broken out, it's a safety tab keeping you from erasing or recording the video. So this is the kind of videotape that the camcorder takes. This is analog tape. This is a TDK brand. It's high 8 metal particle, which is what MP means. 120-minute or 2-hour tape in the standard 2-hour mode. Looks a lot like a VHS cartridge. It's a little different though. So it has, of course, the spool hubs right there for the tape, and there is a locking mechanism which is in a similar place. It's a rectangular hole right here, and there is a tape end detector hole right here where the sensor pokes up through, and there are windows on either side that the tape end sensors are looking at for the clear leader. The VHS has a single flap that covers the tape, and so in VHS, the inside surface, like right in here, is exposed, but in high 8 or 8mm video, the lid is a clamshell. It's hard to see, but it has a bottom lid as well as a top lid, and there's a release catch right here, and if I hold it, I don't want to open all the way, but you can kind of see it start to open, revealing the tape inside. And the tape is 8mm wide, so it's quite a bit thinner than a VHS, of course. And the sliding tab is when it's in the covered position, when it's covering the hole, it says erase off, so it keeps you from erasing the tape. And when it's open, where you don't see the tab, erase on means it enables you to erase the tape or record over it. So it's nice that it doesn't break out like VHS. It's a reusable tab. You can slide it either way. And there's also a couple other holes in the corners, the back 2 corners of the high 8 cartridge, and it tells the machine what length of tape it is and also whether it's standard definition tape or high 8 definition tape by the logic of those holes right there. You know, I was thinking, looking at this picture, how much I really missed looking at a true black and white television set. It is kind of fun. First of all, looking at an old CRT television with the rounded edges and corners, the slightly curved, convex curved screen, but just the look of it is very fun, and it kind of reminds me at my age that how many of the television programs I saw as a kid, I mean all of them as a kid, were viewed on CRT televisions, but I just forgot how fun it is and how cool it looks in comparison to the video that we have today. And I don't necessarily know if it's an strictly a thing about nostalgia, or if there is something in particular about the look of it. I think there's a little of both, certainly, but I really like the look of this analog black and white video. Okay, so by the way, this VHS cartridge is the mindless Dave and Joe sci-fi show, The Bosque Abduction, 3 minutes, 50 seconds. This was the little video short that we impromptu recorded. Dave Loving and I did, a buddy of mine here in the Albuquerque area. We recorded out along the banks of the Rio Grande, north of Albuquerque, near Rio Rancho.
Where we present some of the strange, the weird, the poorly made science fiction shorts mailed to us from our viewers. And as always, the studio audience has voted on the movie you're going to see today. So enjoy the movie.
Come down this road here, and right about here is when we saw them, and they kind of stunned me and dragged me down this bank right here, this cutout, and they kind of dragged my body down. That's where they dragged me. They dragged me, and actually my leg got scraped over the edge of this sharp thing. They just kept dragging me through these bushes and out there toward the river. I was all over. I thought it was it. I really did. Where they dragged me to, right out there on the riverbank, there's actually a remnant of one of the parts of their ship that fell off, because I guess they had a bad landing or something. It's just buried out there. And I don't want to get any closer, because I think the radiation is probably pretty high still. I think the radiation would probably get to us. I think this is about as safe as we should go. You'll notice, if you look back out there again, how the vegetation seems kind of dried and dead just around that one area. Okay, so this is where it happened. I don't remember much. I knew they dragged me up here near the river where their ship was. I think they did some experiments or something. All that's kind of vague, but I know when they took off, there was a huge blast of light and heat. And before I knew it, I looked up and it was nighttime, and it was just like a star going. To me, it looks very extraterrestrial. My favorite line from that is, "To me, it looks very extraterrestrial." Indeed. That video was made, I think it was around maybe the 2003 time period. That was a lot of fun. And of course, this was a totally impromptu, ad hoc, unscripted little thing. We were actually testing out Dave's new camcorder and his video editing software. And it would later result in a 30-minute production called The Bosque Abduction, which eventually I'm going to show here on the channel. I wanted to give a shout out and thanks to Brian Good, one of our Type Club Live participants and a member of the Typosphere. He had done a similar thing a few weeks ago on our Sunday morning Type Club Live, and it kind of inspired me to do this. I've kind of messed with this effect before years ago, but I had forgotten how fun it is. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Well, I thought it was kind of fun. At least for me it is. I hope it is for you. If you want to talk about analog video and video tape formats, old television sets or whatever, old cameras, let's talk about it down below. I'd love to hear from you. Well, as always, stay creative. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.